What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Caleb, and we back with another video. Today we got How to Lose an MVP Award in 10 Seconds by Jimmy Highroller. Let's get into it.
Is there a difference between the best player in the NBA and the most valuable player in the NBA?
Definitely.
It's a bit of a loaded
In my
question,
opinion,
but with
it's
what's going
definitely
on in the NBA right now, I think the question is more relevant than ever. In 1998, Michael Jordan was the best player in the NBA off of sheer skill and ability, but he was also the most valuable player in the NBA because of his impact on the Bulls for 82 games of the season. But seasons like this are usually an exception. The difference between the best and the most valuable are almost never this black and white. In 2011, Derrick Rose won the league's most valuable player award, despite the fact that LeBron was unanimously considered the best player in the NBA at the time. In a league loaded with all-time great talents in the mid-2000s, Steve Nash won back-to-back MVPs, even though he was never considered the best player in the NBA. How good a player is and how valuable they are two very different things. How valuable is a player despite how incredible they are if they can't stay on the court? And how valuable can a player be if they aren't nearly as great, but they are always ready and available? Because right now, I think we're learning the harsh answer to this question.
Embiid, fakest MVP in recent history.
Attention all football fans. This is the
but we're gonna go ahead and skip that.
Association and the NBA signed a new collective bargaining agreement. And within the terms of this new agreement was one requirement in particular that really caught the attention of fans and the players. A new 65-game minimum requirement for season awards. That's all NBA team selections, Defensive Player of the Year, MVP, everything. And despite some concerns regarding this new eligibility threshold, the terms were all agreed upon and signed off by the players and the league. I mean, after all, 65 games is just 80% of the season. In theory, this threshold shouldn't be hard to hit. At least, that's what we thought. Because just one season into this new minimum game requirement, and the worst case scenario is already playing out.
He did not have to win on his leg like that. That's crazy.
Joel Embiid led the NBA's MVP race by a pretty wide margin. Up to this point, his season hasn't just been MVP worthy, it has been one of the greatest offensive seasons in league history. A sort of revenge tour for the backlash he received after winning last year's MVP over Nikola Jokic. And barring some sort of major injury, the 2024 MVP award was virtually his. And then, almost as if it was written in the script, Embiid sustains a major injury, causing him to miss too many games, making him ineligible for the MVP award. This is, without question, the worst possible outcome for not only Embiid, but for the NBA's new agreement with the players, making a new rule that seemed reasonable at the time look completely unfair and unreasonable in hindsight, even though it's not. In fact, the new 65-game rule is a benefit to the players, not a detriment. See, over the last 3 decades, NBA player salaries have increased almost exponentially, product of a massive increase in league revenue thanks largely in part to new, more expansive media deals. Large broadcasting companies fight for the rights to NBA media with massive checks, and in return, the NBA provides an exclusive premier product. In 2014, just a decade ago, the NBA signed a 9-year TV deal worth $24 billion, a deal that dwarfed all of their previous contracts combined. At the start of the 2025 NBA season, their new TV rights kick in, a deal that is worth an estimated $75 billion. And what would a healthy business transaction be without some guarantees and stipulations? The networks and entities picking up these contracts want certainty that once this deal kicks in, they are investing in a healthy, growing product, a deal that benefits everyone. According to HoopsHype.com, the median NBA salary over just the past 5 years has increased from $2.5 million to $4 million. And once the new CBA deal kicks in, this number might even double within the next few years. The league-wide minimum salary has drastically increased as well, from just $500,000 in 2014 to $1.1 million this season. In 2015, there were only 8 players in the NBA making at least $20 million. This season, there are, wait for it.
Oh my goodness.
There's a lot of them.
Oh my goodness.
75 players making at least $20 million. This leap in player salary does not exist without the CBA and without stipulations. League-wide, every player benefits from these ever-increasing deals locked in by bargaining agreements. And in return, the companies who are paying up want to make sure that they're getting the best product possible. And after seeing teams resting and sitting star players, they felt it was necessary to add this 65-game minimum requirement to ensure the quality of their investment. Could this requirement hurt a handful of star players in the long run? Sure, injuries happen. Not every game missed is intentional. But do these requirements also help lock in deals that benefit every single player around the league? Yes, but this only addresses one side of the issue. Because with these new requirements, us fans are winning too. Star players around the league are playing far more games this season than they did in the past few years. Here are the 15 All-NBA players from last season. And through January of last season versus through January of this season, only 3 of these 15 players have played less games this season compared to last season. At this point last year, the top 15 players around the league missed 117 games. This season, they've only missed 76. That's a decrease of nearly 55% of games missed. But even players who won't really be negatively affected by this new 65-game minimum are on the court far more often since this new rule kicked in. If we take a look at the top 50 players around the league in the 2022-2023 season, according to Box Plus Minus, essentially the league's 50 premier players, then here are those players and the number of games they missed through January of last season: 595. This season, in the first year of this new league-wide game minimum requirement, and those same exact 50 players have missed just 406 games. That is a decrease of nearly 45% of games missed from the league's 50 premier players. Now, 50 players across half an NBA season is not a small sample size. Is it a coincidence that all of these players are collectively playing nearly 50% more often than they were just
over
last
100
season?
and
Probably not.
what is that, 109?
Overlooking the most
something like
important
that.
part about this
Less
idea
games
of a
missed.
player being available and just how important that is to a team. After all, they say availability is the best ability. And although I don't know if I agree with this statement, there is a tipping point where a player who isn't nearly as good as another player starts to become more valuable simply because he's on the court more. For example, I think most people would agree that Stephen Curry was better than Donovan Mitchell last season, and all of the numbers would support this, especially this one, the estimated plus-minus metric, which has Curry as the 9th best player last season and Mitchell as the 21st best player last season. But if we look at the estimated wins metric, which factors in how impactful a player was and the amount of minutes they played, then Donovan Mitchell jumps to the 8th most valuable player, while Curry falls to 12th, because Mitchell played 68 games while Curry only played 56. There is a stark difference between the best player and the most valuable player.
Averaging 6
and although there
rebounds
isn't
is
an
crazy,
argument
bro.
for Mitchell being better than Curry,
Can't let that go
there is an
underlooked.
argument that he was more valuable to his team because he simply played more games and made an impact on winning more often. This season, this same exact concept is unfolding on a much larger scale. When Joel Embiid is on the court, he is a monster. Even his biggest cynics couldn't deny the MVP run that he was on. And according to estimated plus-minus, which again essentially looks at how good a player is, Embiid has been the best player in the league this season with an EPM of 10.1, followed by Shea, Giannis, and Jokic. But when it comes to estimated wins, Embiid falls to the 4th spot behind those same 3 players. The sole factor behind this is because he's only played 70% as many games as they have. At the end of the day, would you rather have 60 games from an MVP caliber player or 80 games from an All-NBA or even All-Star caliber player? I think the overall concept for this new 65-game
It depends on what you're going for that season. If you're going for a championship, you need the best player in the league. It don't matter how available he is, as long as he's available for the playoffs. If you're going for like just overall success for your season, your team, you want a good record and stuff, you want the record to look pretty when you enter the playoffs, then you probably go for the All-NBA player that's going to play a lot of games.
A good thing. We will inevitably see some of the downsides to the rule, but overall, the good that will come from it will far outweigh the bad. Some players may not like it, but it's the players and their decisions that led to this point in the first place. With the regular season becoming more irrelevant and disconnected from the postseason, with more players strategically sitting out games and picking and choosing when they want to play, the league had no choice but to enforce this new rule. Over the last 30 seasons, here are the percentage of games played by players who made All-NBA teams. Throughout the 90s and 2000s, the top players around the league played in about 91 to 95% of all games. In fact, prior to 2018, this number only dipped below 90% one time. But over the past 6 seasons, superstars around the league have been playing less and less, bottoming out last season at just 81.5% of games played on average. But this season, would you look at that? The players who are projected to make an All-NBA team are on track to playing 92% of all available games.
Well,
Some may not like it, but the new rule is working. I think playing 80% of the season is a reasonable standard for the best players in the world.
I don't know why he's showing
Ben
Simmons.
Standard,
He's
he's either
play
not
basketball.
as valuable as the players who did,
He
or
be
he had the
retired by now,
misfortune
to
of
be honest.
sustaining an injury, which has and will always be a huge unknown factor in sports. But still, even after all this, it seems like fans are torn on this minimum game requirement.
Oh my goodness.
So what do y'all think?
Very far.
Is the rule too strict? Should there even be a minimum game requirement for season awards at all?
Definitely
Should they make
should.
exceptions to this rule for circumstances like Embiid's? What will be the lasting effects of this new eligibility requirement?
If you get
Let me know
injured,
your thoughts in the comments below.
that's tough, but
And
you
as
have to
always,
play, bro. It's
until
not
next
fair
time.
if you play 40 games and you dominate the season, but this other player played 80 games and he can't get an MVP just because he was better in that short amount of time, bro. It's not fair, bro. So yes, 100% there needs to be a 65 game minimum. Let's see what y'all say in the comments. The thing is, there are only 2 instances where a player won MVP while only playing less than 70 games on the full 82 game season. That's Joel last year and Bill Walton in 1978. People acting like the reason he's not gonna win an MVP is because of the new rule. Okay. Well, yeah, it's like I'm still standing on what I said. I definitely agree with the 65 game minimum rule, and I think it's here to stay. If y'all enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Shout out Jimmy High Roller, and don't forget to let me know which one to see next.
This bitch got a 4-round spark up the black. Why would you lie? You know I know the real. I look you in your eyes and I can tell just how